What happens when you mix deep sports fandom, retro collegiate aesthetics, and zero reliance on paid meta ads? You get Homefield, one of the most beloved collegiate apparel brands and a masterclass in community-led growth. In this episode, I sit down with founder Connor Hitchcock to unpack how Homefield built a 200-school licensing empire without burning cash on performance marketing. We talk about recreating tailgates and bars, DMs that drive word of mouth, and the counterintuitive decision to sell $220 apparel bundles, all while managing the chaos of a 200 matrix marketing calendar. If you want a playbook on building brand equity in the real world, not just a feed, this one's for you. Welcome to In the Money, an exploration of whether you can still make money in D2C and CPG. We follow the flow of money between founders, investors, lenders, and everyone else in the ecosystem to ultimately answer the question, is D2C and CPG still a good business? Hope you'll enjoy the show. Connor, we were talking in pre-recording that you've been able to leverage community as, at minimum, a complement, but even maybe partially a substitute for paid marketing. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, it actually is the primary focus of our marketing, which is funny because my background prior to starting Homefield, I worked in e-commerce doing paid marketing. And then once I started Homefield, partially because of out of necessity with royalties, you have less dollars to spend, but even more so out of that necessity, it became our preferred way of spending our marketing dollars. So we only spend 5% of our revenue on Meta, and the majority of what we do is trying to create moments that encourage word of mouth marketing. I love word of mouth marketing because your customer's doing the work for you, right? And beyond that too, I believe it to be exponential. I tell two friends, they have a good experience. They tell two friends, right? Plenty of statistics out there about how much more likely you are to commit an action because someone told you rather than if you saw a good ad. That sounds really great as I'm saying that here. It's really difficult to get people to do that, of course. So I'll just go do the thing that's, exponential. Why don't you go do that?
So let's talk about that, because I'm sure every D2C operator is salivating at, wow, only 5% of marketing spend to Meta. How do you drive these referable moments? Give us some practical examples.
Yeah. In our industry, in my specific industry, I should say, within licensed collegiate apparel, it's actually pretty defined for us. College sports teams in the US, there are these communities that are really tight-knit around them. Many sports teams have tight-knit communities around them. I'd say within the US, college sports aren't as big as the pros in terms of numbers, but one-to-one, the fans are far more dedicated. I mean, I went to Indiana University. I have a very different relationship with them, even more so than I do with the Indiana Pacers, who just had a great finals run, but it's still different, right? And so we leverage those communities that exist, community moments that already exist. So for example, tailgates, instrumental to an American college football experience. We try to go recreate those tailgates in different towns. So we'll rent out a bar, and the rule is if you show up to the bar wearing Homefield, you drink on Homefield. Just create these positive associations with our brand that replicate the thing you fell in love with when you were 19 years old at your university, and just hanging out with all your friends before going to this communal experience. We do that online, even more so than in person. We can't be everywhere all at once, though we do 30 of these bar events a year. Online, there are micro communities. We see it. I mean, I'm in with a burner. I am in D2C Twitter because I have to have a burner for sports purposes, and I don't want to put my own content personally out there. Nobody cares. But all that said, though, I mean, we see it. There's so many niche communities, micro communities that exist, and so early on in the Homefield days, we'd engage those micro communities. There might be a person with only 1,200 followers on Twitter who would tweet about Pitt basketball, but every single person that followed that account cared about Pitt basketball. So I would go from the Homefield Twitter account, be in the DMs with these people, send them free product, never asking for anything, just creating relationship. That's not scalable. People don't want to do that. It's a lot of work at the outset to create community online and create community in person. But we've seen for us, it really has evolved over time to where, in our post-purchase survey data, our number one acquisition channel was word of mouth marketing. A friend or family member told me. Our number two was organic social. So about 60% of our customers are acquired through word of mouth or organic social. And like I said earlier, it's exponential for us. So that's where we want to focus. The focus of the brand, college sports, lends itself well to a community-based approach because it's such a community-based activity.
The bar example and the influencer seeding, sliding into DMs, that all makes sense. Is there anything that you're doing with your existing customers to drive referrals to kind of create that community?
Yeah, we have the classic give 20, get 20 referral on the website that works well. For our high-level customers, we have a Discord, a lot of different DC brands have Facebook pages. Our demographic is slightly younger. We're actually not going after the current college kids, but we're going, 5 to 10, 15 years out now of school. And so maybe the upper edge there uses Facebook, but for the most part, that's not the preferred social media of choice. So we made a Discord of our top 1% of customers who were just in there talking t-shirts all day. It's funny because we have these great communities, but they all have to even be broken down into further micro communities because there are 200 universities we have and 40 that are really prominent. And, most of those people do not care about a single other school, right? They don't want to see any content if it's not their school. So that's one of the issues we try to figure out is how can we really delve into these micro communities. But there is a layer of people. We have something like, I always forget the number. I know it's over 250 people who've purchased from 50 different schools from our website because they just love the design and the college sports history we bring out. So there is this band of people who just love what we do regardless of school.
But between the influencer, the activations, and the kind of inbuilt customer loyalty that and affinity someone feels with their school, and the increased propensity that they'll tell a friend, all of that drives much more acquisition than kind of top or middle of the funnel meta.
Yeah, certainly. And, we haven't really experimented much with top of the funnel meta. It's been a lot of bottom funnel because frankly, again, when royalties are factored in, we have solid COGS, not world beating COGS, but good COGS. But once you get royalties in there, it makes it, the gross margin statement, because we do put our royalties in gross margin, isn't as great. And so what I do is, for every point that's going toward royalties, it's got to come out of marketing, right? So like I was saying earlier, it forced our hand at the beginning. We couldn't be spending 30% of our revenue on Meta. And I'm grateful for it actually now because we're not dependent on as CPMs go up. iOS 14, nothing happened to me overnight. We grew 3x that year, and I was commiserating while I was being compassionate to some of my friends that obviously affected probably everybody listening to this podcast. But, it's never been a growth driver for us. So, we've had to be more patient. But yeah, we have to do a lot of things that don't seem scalable from the outset. And maybe there was like a 20% chance of it working. And so it was never going to be scalable. But once we kind of hit, product market fit, critical velocity, whatever you want to call it, then it started to feed itself. And so now for us, the challenge is continually making great product and staying very focused on ensuring each fan base is getting something that is, in our core word, thoughtful. And, I have the belief that good marketing can't outrun a bad product. Right. And so maybe for a little bit, but for all begins.
From a resourcing standpoint, how are you staffing this community team, from product seeding to activations to fandom? Is this like one person? Is this like a team of 5? Like, what does that look like?
So we have what it used to just be all me on the marketing side, but then over the last couple of years, we've really expanded our wings there. So Whitney from our team runs all of our content, and she has an associate, our manager now, actually, Michaela, who creates the content. You'll see her face all across our Instagram and TikTok. But then we have one person whose full-time job is seeding product. We brought her on last year, and we have one person full-time, our director of marketing partnerships. Events is a large part of his job, making connections with different, bar partners across the U.S. The college bar is such an integral part of the college experience in the States. But then we have also tapped into those communities. There's a lot of overlap because a lot of those people we seed products to, we may shoot them a DM and say, hey, we're coming to your town, XYZ date. You want to come out, free drinks and apparel on Homefield, and you want to help promote it, right? So there's some cross, functionality there within our marketing team. But yeah, I mean, it's required more people, certainly, right? That's, some of the trade-off of, you can be one person with a laptop and you can spend unlimited money on Meta if you want to. But it requires more people to coordinate physical events.
AI. Everyone's talking about it, and you're worried you're getting left behind. Meet RichPanel, an AI-first customer support platform that's built for one thing: making support faster, smarter, and cheaper for e-commerce brands. Something you can actually feel smarter about using. RichPanel combines a unified inbox across email, chat, and socials, a customizable self-service portal that customers actually use, and Sidekick AI, powered by GPT-4, which learns from your past tickets to suggest on-brand replies. Does it actually work? Well, with RichPanel's guarantee, you get guaranteed 30% cost savings when you switch from Zendesk or Gorgeous, 30% automation to reduce your ticket volume, and a no-risk guarantee that if RichPanel doesn't deliver those results in 60 days, you get a full refund. That's why top brands like Ridge Wallet, Jones Road Beauty, and Pella Cases are already using RichPanel to save hundreds of thousands in support costs. Time to start letting AI work for you. Head to richpanel.com and start your free trial today. Real savings, real automation, real AI that actually works. And does it also require a little bit of belief from an attribution standpoint? And maybe asked another way, are you like measuring this team weekly and being like, hey, I want to connect either post-purchase or direct attribution each week and keep you accountable? Or is it like, hey, we'll like check in on this loosely once a quarter or once every 6 months, but we know that this is growing kind of, the brand, et cetera?
Certainly the latter. It is an exercise in faith. And, what I say to our team all the time, we're trying to build a long-term brand. I want to be doing this for a long time. And so we make, rather than seeing like, oh, how did this content perform? Yes, it's something, of course, that we check in on, or how many, there are loose metrics we apply to an event, mainly how many people showed up, who showed up, did this really important person within that community from this school show up, and did it lead to, subsequent meetings where maybe now we have more of an increased presence in their bookstore, or, X, Y, and Z. It's more so starting with, let's create something we think is good. Here are on a brand marketing side, here are your set dollars to spend on it. And then let's evaluate before even the effects of it. Was it good? Right? Talking about how we can't outrun bad product. For us, was that event good? Did people show up and have a good time? Were they buying stuff? Do we make connections with the right people? Was that piece of content good? I know it didn't get shared a lot, but was it good? That's something we constantly come back to. And in a community, particularly within, direct-to-consumer marketing, where I came from, and that was, how I got my start, everything is metricized. And we are a bunch of 20 and 30-somethings who have very few metrics applied to those things because it's really hard to capture that. What I will look at, I'll look at organic lift on search. I'll look at, to your point, I'll look at post-purchase survey data. I'll look at direct sessions. Those to me are all signals of we're doing our job of creating a product people like, and the marketing we're doing around them has created more of that organic discovery.
I'd love to do a 101 into licensing and royalties, because most listeners probably just haven't encountered that world. We certainly haven't. So maybe we'll just walk through how do you decide which licensors you want? What are the very high level economics? How often do they say yes? Do they say no? And then how many maybe competitors would they give those same license opportunities to kind of within the same category?
All great questions. So within collegiate licensing, which is where, I have the most background, of course. And, I've talked with pro leagues before, but we're focused on collegiate. When you go get a license, first of all, you're more so proving at this juncture, especially within apparel and headwear, which are the two most crowded categories. There are hundreds of categories. Everybody probably thinks apparel, but hard goods, being a big one, right? There are plenty of licensees. Plenty. And you coming in as a new one, for schools that are making $5, $6, sometimes $10 million on the high end in royalties annually, even if you crush it, your $1 million in sales that equate to maybe $200,000 in royalties, that's meaningful, but it's not, the number alone is not going to make them say yes to you. You have to prove that you are offering something unique within the market. And so for us, I was at First Art Design, thoughtful design, is what the word we use, but things that actually matter to your school. In the United States, there are a ton of brands out there, 9 figures, that just take the same design, swap out the name, swap in the colors, right? So we had to prove what we were making was unique, and we thought that was enough. And for some schools, it was. Some bigger schools took a chance on us. But it was our marketing strategies that put us over the top, that nobody was engaging fans in the way we were. In the summer of 2020, we had started a product launch campaign called Big New Saturday, where basically every Saturday in the summer, we created a moment Saturday at noon Eastern where we drop a new school, and it was a live event for people. No sports going on. It was a communal live event on Twitter. And so we'd have these drops, and if we dropped Tulane in Hawaii, cool logos, cool mascot sets that people were dialed into it, and they're retweeting it and talking about their favorite logos or whatever. Then we started getting some pretty big schools, Michigan State and UConn. And the sales started coming. And then fans of other schools were like, well, I want this. And they just blew up the email and DMs of their athletic directors or whoever was, overseeing the department that saw licensing. And it became this moment in the summer of 2020 to where, the season of Big New Saturday ends with Michigan and Alabama asking us, not the inverse, and the Athletic writing a feature-length profile on Homefield and our marketing strategies, right? So the product was the baseline, but it was the marketing that put us forward. So I say all that to say within licensing, you have to, for larger institutions, you have to prove that what you're offering is unique and new and different. And collegiate licensing has been very far behind in terms of e-commerce. Everything is done at the bookstore or at a sporting goods store. And so you have to first prove what you're offering is unique enough and as a new value and is incremental to their royalty pie, and you're not just stealing sales from other licensees. And then there's a whole matrix, as I mentioned, 10 different distribution channels, and then hundreds of rows of products, even down to what blend t-shirt you're using. So you apply for all these in the matrix, of what product category and where you want to sell it. And so that's the short of it. Economics of it, it can be pretty expensive. Pop culture licensing, I have some friends in that space, and it's 7-8%. Sports, collegiate's cheaper than the pros, but collegiate on average, you're paying in about, if it's the bigger schools, about 20%. And so would anyone buy my gear if it didn't say Michigan on it and it was just a blue shirt? Probably not, right? I sell collegiate apparel. That's part of the game. But, and it's a privilege to have the license, and there's a high wall for a potential competitor to scale, right? I'd see them coming from a mile away. But those are the economics of it. And so then within that, though, every single design must be approved by the school too. So a lot of red tape, a lot of compliance involved with it.
What I want to tell you about today is Parker credit cards. Look, there are multiple subreddits dedicated to credit cards points hacking, and I get it. But what do entrepreneurs really want in today's market? Help managing their payback windows when acquisition starts ramping. With Parker credit cards, you get up to 90-day repayments on ad spend to help you on your cash conversion rather than having all that upfront ad spend before revenue starts coming in. Parker allows you to spend aggressively while still managing cash flow, including meta spend. So instead of hunting for best points or cashback programs, realize that the best ROI is to be able to increase your ad spend without hurting cash flow. Go and check them out. Parker credit cards at getparker.com. That's getparker.com. Parker is a financial technology company, not a bank. The Parker Commercial Credit MasterCard is issued by Patriot Bank and a member of the FDIC, pursuant to license by Credit Card International Incorporated. And so how often are you doing new design iterations? Is that like for Michigan State, is that kind of once a year, once every 3 years? Is it 4 times a year?
Yeah. We're trying to figure that out. So now we're not just direct to consumer. We sell hundreds of campus bookstores, Celtic Sporting Goods, Academy, Rally House, Shields, all across the U.S. And so we have pre-book seasons, right? It's actually about to deliver here in 2 weeks for back to school. And so what we do now is we'll design for pre-book every year, all these different products. And we're about to, jump into it for this fall to show for next fall, right? So we'll design one big push every year for a bunch of schools. And then there's certain moments we try to capture. So in a couple, 5 weeks here, we're going to launch our college football campaign. So we pick out additional schools that we want to do additional SKUs for to focus on for this college football season. And then we do the same for March Madness. And so it's really school dependent. If a school comes to us with an idea too, that's what makes a great partner. They say, hey, we're going to have a whiteout game on Halloween, and we'd love you to have some products in venue and on your website that's, white to celebrate the whiteout game and give fans something to buy a couple weeks before the game so they can wear it. Stuff like that. That's when we'll go and make extra products. And we're always trying to find that balance, though, of you want something new every season. A lot of people are season ticket holders. They want to be wearing something fresh to start the season. And so, you're evaluating where you do well within different fan bases. A lot of people do cohort analysis in general in this industry. I do it. My cohorts are schools. And yes, I'm looking at when they purchase and whatnot, but it's primarily school driven as opposed to time. And you can start to see when a fan base gets a little stale because you haven't given them enough new stuff, or maybe you've given them too much. So we're constantly trying to figure out what the right balance is. For most schools, it's about twice a year that you get a big product push.
And you going back to the Matrix example, it sounds like you've already expanded across the Matrix in terms of more channels. You said that you're in bookstores and other retailers and wholesalers. Are you expanding also down the Matrix in terms of product categories per school as well? Or are you like, no, we want to be pretty tight skewed to avoid additional operational complexity?
Yeah. So we have our evergreen products that we're not changing our set of evergreen, right? Our t-shirts and our hoodies that we hold them blank and we print them on demand. But then you want to add what we call our fashion pieces, $160 bomber jacket, $200 zip hoodie we got coming out this fall. Those we'll offer once. You get it or you don't get it. And if it's successful enough that it sells out, wonderful. I'm not stuck with extra inventory. And then I'll bring it back again for next fall. We actually just did this for the Indianapolis 500. We literally, if you were to pull the garage door, one wall behind me, you would see the Indianapolis Motor Speedway from my desk. And so we'll do stuff for the Indy 500 every year. We had this bomber jacket that went nuts. It's one of the best pieces we've made. We only brought in, the track bought 400 of them and we put 288 on our website. And we sold out before the race weekend. I mean, these things take 4 months to make, right? We had someone offer, we had a tent set up at the track. Someone offered one of our team members $750 to buy it off their back, right? But then we ended up just doing a pre-order, and sold another 288, closed the pre-order after a day. Those sort of things, we try to offer unique product every year that's not just a t-shirt or sweatshirt, because, it's not a highly anticipated drop if it's just a bunch of other shirts. I mean, they might be cool shirts, but why now? Why do I have to act now to get this product, right? So now seasonally, we'll try to bring in something that's new. So it may not be a different product category, but it may be a different type of jacket. Maybe there's some decoration that we haven't used before. Maybe there's some really cool cut and sew in it that we haven't done, or there's a cool liner or something like that. So those are the wrinkles we're trying to add. We're not trying to go so wide, because I've been stuck with a lot of inventory that, will eventually move. People love their teams, but trying not to be everybody knows inventory, it's death by a thousand paper cuts for the most part. It's not one drop that's going to kill you. So we just try to have our base product, stick to it, and then have a couple of cool fashion pieces every fall.
And is it part of the growth strategy to go and get more licenses, or is it that you've already covered the 80% and it's kind of marginal from here?
The latter. And it excites me, the opportunity we have. We'll do that big new Saturday example I was talking about earlier. When we dropped Penn State, it was our biggest drop. They had not had a Homefield collection for 4 years and they were begging for it. We saved them for last. And within 12 hours, we'd acquired 2,000 customers of the drop, right? It was, almost $250,000 of revenue in 12 hours. Though they fit 100,000 people in their stadium every Saturday. So as successful as that was, 2,000 of them, and only 2,000 of them, I'm reframing that, only 2,000 were acquired that day. Similarly, we're based in Indiana. We have all the Power 4 schools you could want, but Indiana will always be our biggest one because I'm extremely biased, and we have hit it off with that fan base. I teach a brand strategy class, or I have a couple of times for a few semesters down in Bloomington, and I'll always pull the class at the beginning, like, I'm not offended here, but how many of you have actually heard of Homefield? And it's always like 2 or 3 people out of 30. And that I get really excited when I hear that, because my belief is it's great. We can do the same amount of design work. We can do the same amount of work. It's going to take time with the method we've chosen of how we market, but we can get deeper into these fan bases. We haven't exhausted an audience or anything. We're just getting started. So it's remaining focused, because if, similarly to too many product categories, if I start to go out and get 200 other schools, or if I go and I'm like, I want to go do the MBA now or whatever, you just lose focus. So for us, it's going deeper into those fan bases.
Yeah. And going from 2,000 to 5,000 to 10,000 out of that 100,000 person stadium.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And if I'm doing my job well, it's not just 5,000, it's 5,000 who go tell more thousands, right? So that's what I'm betting on. But that starts with creating a great experience all around. You're only going to tell your friend if you have a great experience or if you have a terrible experience. You're not gonna be like, yeah, that was like, you should go hear about this brand that I had. Like, they did a solid job. I love this brand or I hate this brand. That's the only way word of mouth happens.
You also have your design aesthetic is very nostalgia heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the design uniqueness. Is there some consideration of like, well, out of the 100,000 person stadium, only X percentage are going to have a vibe for nostalgia versus like wanting the more generic, let's say, look? Yeah. Or are you like, and so how do you kind of balance that versus like, no, it's nostalgia because like we need to stand for something?
Yeah. Yeah. It's primarily things that are considered vintage or older marks. However, the word we use, thoughtful, it's primarily wrapped up in that. But even last year, for example, Indiana, for those who follow American college football, they're the losingest college football team of all time. And yet last year they went to the college football playoff and were number 5 in the country at one point. Crazy season. So we made a ton of shirts that were all current marks and were about the current team, and people bought them like crazy. And so while we primarily are known for this particular aesthetic or focus, it worked because we were telling a story. That story was current, but we were always telling a story with our apparel. It wasn't simply a matter of, it just said Indiana. It had an illustration of the head coach quoting his favorite line, "Google me, I win," right? And that resonated. So the aesthetic, Matt, you have to be known for something, and we're certainly known for a specific aesthetic. But what we're more known for, even more than the aesthetic, is that thread of storytelling.
Why do we love numeral? Well, here's the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good is that over 1,000 e-commerce stores just like you use them for sales tax compliance, including some pretty big brands like Ridge, Emmy, Nomad, and Graza. The bad is that none of us got into this to spend a ton of time on sales tax and admin, which is why Numeral is able to help you in 5 minutes or less get full coverage, deal with registrations, ongoing filings, and compliance. It just happens in the background. And the ugly is that not a lot of store owners know that sales tax is actually personally guaranteed. Said another way, that the states could end up coming after you personally if you're not on top of it. Even a modest $5 million store owner could have Nexus in 20 or 30 states. Again, Numeral helps you stay compliant, and they even guarantee their work. That's why we love them. Go and check them out at numeralhq.com. That's numeralhq.com. Connor, what's a learning from the past 12 months? Maybe an assumption or tactic that didn't play out as you expected? And then also the biggest win of the last 12 months?
Yeah. We tried TV for the first time just to see what would happen. And have a great agency, would recommend them to anybody. I think was just not, it's not the right time for us yet, in that, we saw, from what we were able to pull, we think there's about a 1x return, right? So, you're losing money on it, but now I need to conduct some massive effect over, years of like top of funnel effect on down the line. But I thought it'd perform a little better based off of where the spots were. We had a great media buyer who was finding opportunities during like Caitlin Clark Iowa games, right? At the last second. Huge. So it was a pretty warm audience in that it was, people watching college basketball. But that's something we'll try again one day, but I thought the return would be a little higher. Even knowing, the company I worked at prior had tried TV before, knowing the TV is just an entirely different animal than anything else. So that was something that, didn't work quite to the effect that I'd hope, at least in terms of the ROAS there, or CAC there. One thing that we tried, a huge bet we made last year that we're doing again, it was really successful, was an exclusive box for the start of college football season. You asked earlier, how often are you refreshing product? We traditionally, for our bigger schools, have refreshed it twice a year. But, if we release 8 items, you can go buy 1 item. Last year for football season, biggest part of the year, we took our refresh and you could only buy it all together in one box. You couldn't pick a single item out. You had to buy the whole thing. It was like $220 MSRP, and it crushed. Just absolutely crushed. Something crazy, like almost $500,000 in the first 24 hours. And, sold thousands of them after the fact. And so we did it again for basketball on a much smaller scale, but items specific for that time and place. We're always trying to figure out why now. And so the why now is, of course, football is coming back. I have to have something for the season, but it's an item that you could wear in August, where in the States it's going to be really hot. You can have a hoodie for December where, it's going to be cold, or November at a tailgate, right? You can have headwear for when it's sunny. All these sort of things that were thoughtfully crafted toward your college football viewing experience and the way you engage with the sport. So we've been, bundling is a hot phrase these days, but we have certainly from an AOV and from a margin perspective, I mean, it's a huge win for us.
As you were talking through that, I kind of had the realization and started to get anxious that your marketing calendar must be one of the most complex in e-commerce. And so maybe my question is, how do you resource that? And like your marketing manager thinking about this matrix of 200 schools, the different events throughout the year, the micro communities, how do you keep that organized?
That's such a great question because we're still figuring it out every day. There's so much you can do. And like anything, whatever you choose, you were saying when you say yes to one thing, eventually you've run out of rope and you are saying no to something else. In our sense, sometimes it's different times of year. We're just working a lot more. And so we have a wider capacity to say yes. But it's a lot of planning right now when it's the summer in the US. People want to take vacations and should take vacations, right? But building into college football to do all of that prep work. So yeah, sometimes we miss, but I mean, we have to be really dialed into what the story of sports are. So of the upcoming seasons will be. So in January, we're looking already to August. Okay, who are the teams that have a great recruiting class? Who got all the transfers? Who is going to be the story of college football this season? And we are going to lean hard into that. And then when there's a surprise team, okay, in October, let's do some quick hot market products to react to that. But we have to just, to your point, you have to bet on some horses and hope they pan out. I don't sports gamble. People ask if I do, and every day I'm sports gambling with this company effectively.
You mentioned Caitlin Clark earlier. When you get someone that transcends a college or even a sport, how quickly are you guys like, as she is ascending, are you like, hey, we need to get marketing, product going because we need to catch this wave?
Yeah, I mean, our Iowa gear certainly shot through the roof when her last 2 seasons in particular. And so for us, it was, okay, after her junior season, going into her senior year, we're like, we know we're going to need more Iowa women's basketball gear. And so that does factor into our calendar. If we're really good, we're saying that a year out. Typically ends up being like 3-4 months out. We're like, oh, basketball's coming. Okay, Iowa's going to be really good this year. You can always count South Carolina on the women's side. So make sure we have, the requisite amount of South Carolina. But yeah, the performance of a team, more than anything, no matter how good our product looks, no matter how crafty or creative we are with marketing, it's the performance of the team that drives so much for us. And so it's sometimes you're made to look like a genius just because you had a bunch of product for this team that all of a sudden went nuts. And then sometimes, I mean, we've had teams that have had complete 180 seasons where they were awesome one year. So then we bought into them a ton and then they tanked the next year and you're just sitting on so much product. It's you price it in a little bit, but that's just part of it.
Yeah, so interesting. Connor, as we head towards a wrap, 2 closing questions. What's the thing that you're most excited about for the rest of the year, whether that's a trend, product, channel? And then is there anything you're looking for from the audience? Partners, retail, talent, capital?
Yeah. What I'm most looking forward, and I can't believe I didn't mention this earlier, we are testing for the first time. It's not our owned retail. It's a partnership with a store down in Bloomington, but it will be a Homefield build out within that store, which is really cool. So it'll be the majority of the store will be Homefield, a ton of Homefield branded elements. And that experience is a, long-term, call it year-long pop-up that could extend beyond that. Really excited to see how that performs from a customer acquisition and, just revenue in general standpoint, being in a college town, because there's plenty of college towns in the US that, could use something like that. And then, things I'm looking for right now, we were talking right before we hopped on. We're talking to a few folks as we're looking to put together a round prior to college football starting. So if you like college sports and you like investing in consumer, find me. I'm sure Fan can give you my contact info.
Yeah, we'll drop a couple of links in the show notes. Connor, so great to have you on, and look forward to next time.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you having me.